Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Shot of Nostalgia, joining us for our 21st episode, where we continue to dive deep into that rich history of WCW 1996, baby. You know me, still the same OG, Mike motherfucking B, and always, I'll let the man himself introduce himself.
It's Stephen ACEFIELD, the Ace of the Tavern, live from the No Cell Studios. We're here on a Friday to get your weekend started, to talk all about nostalgia, and what better way to do WCW 1996. Dude, it is so great to have you back. I missed you last week. I was out here. But dude, it was amazing to see you in person.
Yes.
Like, we met in person. We had a great weekend in Chicago.
World imploded.
It was awesome.
Yeah, man. No, we definitely tore some shit up here. And no better way to do it. You know, we did it with style. We did it with grace. We did it with style and grace. It was a great time, man.
Hell yeah, man. And like you mentioned before, this is our 21st episode, so we're almost there. This is September. We're almost actually caught up to exactly where we are in history. We will be reviewing two shows today, September 9th, 1996, WCW Nitro, and also Fall Brawl 1996, which is heralded as one of the best shows in this year, and also of all WCW pay-per-view wise. So before we get into it, you watched this obviously this week, Mike. You watched this as a kid, as a young adult. You enjoyed this, right?
I was enthralled with the double cage match. You know, 2 rings, 1 giant cage, roof on top. You got NWO. You got basically NWO versus WCW here. And a little Mike Belcaster was losing his shit like all holy hell.
Dude, so good. And like, we take for granted the War Games match. This became an annual tradition in WCW. We do see it a bit in NXT. It came back to life throughout their blood feuds there. And we also see it obviously as the blood and guts in AEW. But this was a staple of culmination of feuds here in WCW. And what better way to have? I mean, the feud continued, WCW versus NWO. It never really ended. But this was a really good way that two enemies were putting their differences aside with Sting and Luger and the Horsemen to take on the NWO. Man, I was really looking forward to this. This is like where it really gripped me as far as storyline goes. For the first time, I mean, since Bash at the Beach, obviously we're looking forward to, but for War Games, I was really looking forward to this. And I don't think it disappointed. We'll get into how we felt about it, but this was a really, really fun event, and the build-up was great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great build-up, great show. Let's fucking go.
Let's go. And I mean, honestly, it feels refreshing too to be going through 1996. we're inundated with information about the CM Punk stuff and AEW, and feels nice to go back and take a little sigh of relief here in the freshly confines of shot of nostalgia, because man, it's been hectic out there. And if you guys are looking for wall-to-wall coverage of the CM Punk stuff, we've been dropping in the news, AEW Wrap-Up Show. You check out the flagship. There's been a lot of conversation. I know Extra Cooler Boys just dropped in, a nice episode about it as well. Chick Foley did as well. So we're covering on all bases. But as far as flashback stuff goes, you have Flashback Friday following this. WrestleMania 9 with Nick and Young Anthony will be following this. That's the toga party. If those dudes are not wearing togas live on air, I'm riding. I'm gonna storm the stream, and I'm gonna get involved. There needs to be togas.
Bed sheets, something. Nothing's too hard to access when it's toga time, man.
It's just right there for you. And if there's no togas involved, I want everybody in the comments to say you should be wearing togas. Refilm the episode. But so we're gonna hop into happy hour, talk all about the newsletter. Our good friend Dave Meltzer, who by the way was in the same building, breathing the same oxygen as me. I said hi to him at GCW. He was there to watch his good friend Brian Alvarez wrestle at GCW, and you guys can hear about that on Monday's episode of GCW. But myself and Dave Meltzer were sharing the same space, and what a shitty building that building is that GCW was hosted in. I know you've been there. Holy crap.
I tried warning you. I said it was definitely on it's no heart pose. you know.
No, it is no Harpo's. It's not the Roxy Theater.
No.
Damn, I mean, it's not even the Atlantic, the Showboat Ballroom.
Yeah.
It is in a category of its own as the worst thing I think I've ever watched a wrestling match in. But, GCW made the best of it. It was hot as hell, but some great wrestling. Put a nice exclamation point on my weekend.
Can't ask for a better GCW experience, man.
It was definitely the GCW experience. But let's hop into the happy hour, get our drinks ready, and let's go through the newsletter in September of 1996. Oh, man, it feels so good to have you back here, Mike. We're going to go through the newsletter together. I was like a deer in headlights, and I appreciate those that watched last week. This was the second episode I did Shot of Nostalgia solo, but it is not the same when I don't have my good buddy Mike Belcaster here to break down all the news. And, man, we have a lot to break down in the September newsletter. We talked about the newsletters waning a bit. It's not the same this week. We have a lot to go through. And let's start with the September 9th, 1996 newsletter, the same day it dropped as the Nitro we're covering. So we get some Davey Boy Smith news, the British Bulldog. He was in the news a bit this weekend with Clash at the Castle, and his family was in attendance. They paid some homage to him in that match he had at 92 with Bret Hart. So I thought it was apropos we'd be talking about Davey Boy Smith here. And the original plan was for Davey Boy Smith, a.k.a. the British Bulldog, to join the New World Order, and it fell through. The WCW instead turned to the Giant and made him the new member, presumably being the fourth member of that team for the 9/15 Fall Brawl pay-per-view War Games main event. So I ask you, does it change your perception of what NWO would have been if, say, British Bulldog was there? I was highly critical of the Giant being put in there because of, and we'll get to why it sucked, because it just made them a superpower. The opposition felt like they couldn't go against the New World Order.
Yeah.
I don't know if Davey Boy Smith fit the aesthetic. It feels weird that, he'd be a part of this.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like King Mabel's the third man. Like it doesn't really add up. But I wouldn't have been against it. I think it would have been cool, but maybe would have been lacking some effort and some oomph on their side of things. So I'm glad things went the way they went, even though the Giant is obviously a brick wall for WCW to try to get through the NWO. Totally get it.
Yeah, so Meltzer notes that this was a great angle as far as gaining attention, and I mean the Giant joining the New World Order and further putting New World Order over. But he said, and I quote, "It got so ridiculous that it wound up killing the opposition in the process, making Flair and Anderson look like an impotent old men who were totally out of their league, as opposed to two people who fans couldn't wait to see get the revenge from the previous week's great angle." So we always run the risk of making the New World Order look too strong, too cool, where you're putting them over your company. And I know that that's been some, I guess, of the criticism for WCW, how they booked the New World Order. It was at the expense of all their homegrown guys, their brand, and at the end of the day, it became this, it poisoned the water as far as fans go. But
yeah,
I don't know what side of the fence I'm on, because the NWO helped us reach heights in the wrestling popularity that we never would have reached. But was it done at the expense of NWO? I mean, the expense of WCW, I should say.
Yeah, listen, it definitely lit a fire in the world of pro wrestling, and it only helped the business, got it to some of the peaks, the very, very big peaks of pro wrestling viewership. And, it's retrospectively, of course you could look at it and say it should have been done better, but I think for what it was, it really changed the whole landscape of pro wrestling.
So when Vince McMahon got word that potentially Davey Boy would be joining WCW, he was on the verge of actually completing the deal, coming over. WWF attorney Jerry McDivitt and finally reached out the next day and said to have been furious. The bone of contention was that Smith had apparently made a verbal agreement to continue with the WWF and sign a 5-year contract, even though he had not actually signed it, and that Smith's attorney had already signed a preliminary entering into a contract several weeks ago. So it's funny, we still see Jerry McDivitt. He's still very much involved with WWE in their lawsuit stuff, and his name was popping up with the Vince McMahon scandal and all that. But interesting enough that he didn't sign the deal, there was some anger on their side that potentially he was going back on his word, and I just think that's funny that it was enough to get him to back down from signing the deal with WCW.
Yeah.
So we have the Giants' turn was WCW's last-minute panic move since it had promised to introduce 2 new members of the NWO on the September 2nd Nitro. The other new member in the original plan was Sean Waltman. As we've been talking about from week to week, he's been held up because of legal issues and they can't get a clearance. So now they're panicking. They needed to have some new members join the New World Order. What were your thoughts on, I guess, the Giant? First of all, we just talked about it before, but what were your thoughts on the Giant originally joining? And do you think it was too much too soon, or should they left it at 3 guys?
As a little kid, I was jacked up. I was like, hell yeah, let's go. Like it was cool to see more depth to just these 3 dudes running around beating the shit out of people with baseball bats. So it kind of had like we have a big guy now. So that was cool. But like in retrospect, yeah, I mean, the Giant could have been the guy that they really built up to take down the NWO as opposed to putting in the NWO. And I think it would have been way more like richer storytelling if they did that.
100%. And I think that's where I lay on here. And I think the Giant as a star was stunted when he started to surround himself with Hall, Nash, and Hogan. It's hard to shine when you're around those guys because they're larger than life. And the Giant himself, he was emerging to be that guy. He was already world champion earlier in the year, and he's become the cornerstone at such a young age. I feel like it was detrimental to his career. And it's easy to say now because, he actually went on to do great things and signed with WWE and legendary career. But what could have been as far as WCW goes, maybe he wouldn't have left in the first place if that, if he would have been booked more, I guess, cohesively to being the babyface Giant that they wanted him to be.
Absolutely, man.
So there were hints at the end of the Nitro on September 2nd of more New World Order members joining and being introduced. And these are some interesting names that I wanted to pass by you. One's believed to be Jeff Jarrett, whose WWF contract expires on October 4th. We keep seeing Jeff Jarrett. The other one here, Bam Bam Bigelow, who hasn't wrestled for the WWF for nearly 1 year, also has a WWF contract that expires over the next several weeks. And WCW had expressed interest in using him when the contract expired. Although we haven't heard his name in connection with coming to WCW since June, when Bischoff talked to Bigelow about coming when his WWF contract expired at, get this, the World Wrestling Peace Festival we talked about all these weeks ago. Man, I kind of like the idea of Bam Bam Bigelow here in New World Order. He fits the aesthetic I'm looking for with the head tattoo. You want a big, bad bruiser in your group. I can picture Bam Bam with the black and white flames on his Dude, full tights. I can picture it.
100%, man. And there's not too many bigger badasses in pro wrestling than Bam Bam Bigelow himself. So that would have been badass. That would have been a great fucking move.
All right, so finally in the 9/9/96 newsletter, we have Bret Hart telling business friends that he was offered substantially more money by WCW. He had told one person it was triple what he was currently making in WWF. But he said, and I quote, "It's going to be a step down if I leave." So only a year later would the tide have really changed. And I guess Bret, from his narrative, will say that he was forced to leave. But it's funny enough that even in 96, he had the foresight to understand that WCW was not the place he wanted to continue to etch his brand. And man, if we were covering 1997 and 1998 WCW, it is horrifying how they booked Bret Hart.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Could not agree with you more on that one.
All right, so going into the 9/16/96 newsletter, so this was kind of in alignment with what's been going on for the All Out pay-per-view. There was some criticism with the build, that they weren't hyping up the main event, not even announcing the main event. And it's funny, you and I talk about Tony Khan being this Bischoff mark and being this Bischoff fan and aligning himself with what Eric Bischoff does. Well, this is straight from the playbook of Eric Bischoff, and we didn't even know it. Bischoff apparently believes that fans going into a pay-per-view, not knowing who will appear in the main event, will add buys to the mystery element. If you look at the history of wrestling and the biggest houses and pay-per-view buy rates in history, according to Meltzer, there is no evidence in the past of this being the case, and there have been plenty of mystery partner angles done over the years. So this wasn't a complete main event not being added. This was just obviously the mystery partner. We didn't know if Sting was going to show up because of he turned heel, and we'll get into all that went down with the fake Sting. But it is funny that this is like history is repeating itself again. And I think as time goes on, you want something to hype it around. You want to be able to prepare for the match and get fans excited. I don't think mystery things add a lot. I mean, you can go back to the Cody and the Seth Rollins build. That worked, but it's not the main event. Like, you need to build the card around the main event.
I mean, even MJF this weekend. Great moment, awesome stuff. That's all it is, though. It's not I didn't buy a ticket to anything or order a pay-per-view because they're like, oh, there's a mystery guy in the fucking ladder match. You know, it doesn't add wholesale value to it. It's just like, who's going to, like, once you're already invested into the product, that's when you start going, oh, who's this guy going to be? What do we got going on with this? So it's weird thinking, very weird thinking.
Yeah. So we'll get more into that when we talk about fake Sting and for Fall Brawl and all that. So we got more Ultimate Warrior here in the news, and according to claims in a lawsuit by Jim Hellwig, a.k.a. Warrior, against Titan Sports, at one point Vince McMahon had agreed to pay Hellwig $1 million per pay-per-view event. Although their relationship fell apart before the first show, Warrior was supposedly going to get that figure. Whether Hellwig's claim was legitimate or not, or he did earn $550,000 for his 1991 WrestleMania match against Randy Savage, isn't clear because WWF attorney Jerry McDevitt dismissed most of Hellwig's claims and that his current lawsuit is being fictitious. I wanted just to throw that by you. That is a huge number for Warrior.
Yeah.
And we see him eventually wind up back in WCW, but that's wild to see some of these numbers pop up with these paydays early on in the WrestleMania history. And wow. I mean, we've seen him in the newsletter a bit, but I just want to throw that by you.
No, that's wild. Absolutely wild.
So speaking of huge paydays, Meltzer also notes that it is believed Hogan's highest payoff in WCW's contract, calling for 25% of the company's pay-per-view revenue, would fall slightly more than $600,000 for his biggest matches against Ric Flair and Vader, that he earned in the range of $750,000 for his 1987 WrestleMania match against Andre the Giant, which was the biggest show in American wrestling history. So compare that to the numbers that Warrior's doing. Hogan, who's arguably the most influential wrestler in American wrestling history, those are the numbers. And I just, obviously not a lot to do with WCW, but I wanted to include that because once you run by those numbers, it's interesting to think. When you're watching these Manias, and if you guys are watching before our time, they just covered WrestleMania 7, they covered WrestleMania 3. You don't think about what these guys are getting paid and what is the percentage of pay that they're getting. But it was fascinating when I saw those numbers in plain black and white.
Yeah, 25% of ticket sales for a show, revenue for pay-per-view, that's insane.
Yeah, his agent really negotiated a great deal for himself. So
damn right.
All right, so speaking of organizing and getting someone a deal for yourself, Sean Waltman officially got his release this past week from the World Wrestling Federation after all, and is legal and available to work WCW, and is expected to be introduced either on a pay-per-view or Nitro next week. It certainly appears the two companies are playing childish games with each other on items like this. You and I use the word petty. I guess you could use the word childish. Sean Waltman will eventually join the New World Order and be a part of this. As soon as next week, we're going to show it. Obviously, we have the graphic ready, and you and I know what happens. It's evergreen content. But it seems like we're going to get Sean Waltman, and he may be a difference maker. I'm looking forward to see him on my screen in WCW.
Yeah, he fits right in with the smaller talent there too, putting on really great shows, great matches, great in-ring stuff. So I'm excited for him to pop up, man.
So we move on to the War Games match, and they have a stipulation in place. If the New World Order team wins at War Games, which is almost a certainty, the stipulations are the New World Order gets its own segment on television, which will allow Hall, Nash, and the rest to wrestle on television matches and get their own tag team titles. So we do see the idea originally was to have New World Order as its separate brand. They tried to establish that. But do you remember this being a thing, or as a fan in 1996, were you clamoring for New World Order to have their own screen time, or did you like them when they were meshed in to everybody else?
Eventually it got to, like, I loved when they first did the Sold Out, and it was NWO Sold Out, and it was good for them to have their own pay-per-view. It was fun. It was different. I never thought about them having their own tag titles or anything like that. Like that's very interesting shit.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that's where they were going, and I know that the original Japanese angle that Bischoff says it wasn't based on this, but if you go with the original angle, they created a whole separate entity that exists on its own, and they would feud with each other, similar to what the brand split wanted to do with Raw and SmackDown when WCW went out. You wanted to create competition within and get people to compete against each other, and I guess in a way, Raw and SmackDown did eventually do that in the mid-2000s, where you felt, loyalty to a brand. I mean, most people didn't, but for a bit there were certain guys that felt like SmackDown guys, felt like Raw guys. And if you can create competition within and you control both parties and you're benefiting financially from both sides, it's a win-win situation, but it never quite can replicate what it's really like on both sides of the war with WWF and WCW, where they're both trying to pull their throats out of their neck and they want to end each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't you can't fake that type of competition.
No, not at all.
So there is a lot of internal turmoil, and I mean, we talked about internal turmoil in current day AEW, but back in 1996, there's some heat from this angle that went down on September 2nd because the Horsemen basically felt like they were killed off, and Ric Flair, whose contract expires in November, was once again very angry about taking this angle to the next level, and now he wants to take some time off, and Steve McMichael is said to be pretty unhappy with how everything went down. Other mid-card wrestlers are also unhappy because of the belief that Hogan won't let anyone else but his guys get over, and they're already over, so they don't have to hold anyone else back. Of course, with the ratings where they are and Hogan signed through 98, don't expect things to change much. This sounds familiar minus the ratings. We see the heat with the Elite and the Young Bucks. It seems like throughout history with weave in and out is this drama and this jockeying for position about where you want to be on the card. It's a matter of how you handle it. We didn't see anyone biting each other in the back here. No one threw a chair at each other. They were just angry and they had a conversation like adults.
Listen, we don't know. I could see Mongo biting some people, getting riled.
Well, we had Hogan as well, and this is kind of weird that you and I are doing this episode right now while following this, like I mentioned, right after this, before our time of covering WrestleMania 9, because Hogan infamously had that black eye, and I'm not sure exactly what they had said he had got the black eye from. I don't know what the original story was. Rumor has it, and this is not actually proven fact, that they said Macho Man punched him in the face because of a relationship he was having with Elizabeth. There's also talk that maybe he fell in the shower. But it's funny because here in the newsletter, Hogan himself had a major scare on September 8th, 1996, as he was on his jet ski riding around with his 6-year-old son, Nicholas Balea, tied to the back in an inner tube when there was a serious accident as Nicholas crashed into pilings. It could have been much worse, and the extent of the injuries were that Nicholas suffered a concussion and needed stitches in his head, and his arm was put in a sling, but overall will be fine. Hogan showed up on Nitro the next day because he felt it was important to be a part of the last angle before the pay-per-view show. Rumor and innuendo has it that Hogan got that black eye from maybe a jet ski incident. Am I misremembering the WrestleMania 9 stuff? I didn't do the research for that era, but weird that it lined up that way, and what a crazy situation. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, no, it absolutely sounds horrible.
They say the same thing about Brutus Beefcake. Beefcake apparently had his whole face rearranged in a jet ski accident, right?
Yeah, isn't that? It's wild. I think his was a boating accident. I wasn't sure.
These dudes got to stay off the jet skis. What are we doing? Stay off the aquatic vehicles, guys. What are we doing?
Florida men getting wild out there,
brother. So the basic plan for Halloween Havoc right now is Benoit and Arn Anderson versus Ming and Barbarian, Ultimo Dragon versus Justin Liger for the 8 belts, Diamond Dallas Page versus Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio defending the Cruiserweight title against Malenko, Harlem Heat defending the tag titles against the Steiners, Flair defending the U.S. title against the Giant, and of course the main event, Hogan defending the WCW title against Randy Savage. There'll be a few more matches announced. This is sponsored by Slim Jim. It'll be a very famous event. They have the ring post wrapped like Slim Jim, sponsorship all over the ring. There was conversation on, I forget whether it was 83 Weeks or What Happened When, they were talking about why Vince never sold that real estate for advertisements. And part of his reasoning was that he believed it was sacred ground. And think about the value that people like Snickers or Slim Jim or whoever sponsored these WCW events are getting. We're still watching them here almost 30 years later, and we're still getting advertisements for these things, and Slim Jim's still getting a pop out of this.
Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
So we also have the Baywatch episode, which was filmed last year, with Hogan, Savage, Ric Flair, Vader, Kevin Sullivan, and others from WCW, was rerun this past week on September 1996. So any memory of them on Baywatch, and maybe we could pull up a clip and put it on our Instagram.
Yeah, no, I have no mental recollection of it. I remember it happening. I remember watching it because I was like, oh shit, WCW's invading the Baywatch Beach, man. Like I was super I was into all that marquee shit. I would anytime there was crossovers, I was down. I was here for it, man.
I do remember Vader, I remember the clip of Vader for whatever reason. I don't remember Hogan myself on Baywatch, but I know Vader had a little bit of, little pub on Boy Meets World. He was also, he was kind of all over the place, which is a sneaky weird thing because you don't think of him as this face for TV. He was like this monster, but he was everywhere a little bit.
Yeah, he had good acting chops, man.
So it's finally here, and it's not on a Nitro, it's not on a pay-per-view, but we finally got the debut of Glacier. He debuted on television on Sunday, and they played it up huge. He didn't look particularly good or bad, this according to Meltzer, but overall he's mainly an elaborate ring entrance doing a martial arts comic book type gimmick aimed at a kid's audience. This was on September 9th, 1996, which is almost to the day. Actually it is to the day. Yeah. It is September 9th, 2022, which is really funny. I mean, if we would have got Ray Lloyd on here for that would have been amazing.
Oh, I would have popped so hard. So hard. We can't have me fangirling about Glacier all the time, man.
So his debut finally occurred on an episode of Pro when he pinned the Gambler in a match, which was also one of only 2 matches in which he executed his cryonic kick finisher off the top rope before it was changed to a spin-in reverse roundhouse kick and subsequently to a standard side kick. Your thoughts on Glacier debuting after all this time on an episode of Pro?
That's a letdown. Absolute letdown. But best fucking gimmick in the business, man. Kids printing money, and they missed out on it. I remember that jumping kick, and it was so dangerous. I think that's why they had to change it, because it was like a Mortal Kombat kick.
Yeah.
It was like nobody should be doing that shit in fixed sport. Like... Terrible.
No, it's true. I mean, so we'll get more into Glacier. Hopefully we'll see him on Nitro soon. But until then, just look out for his name. And, I still look at Glacier as one of the biggest missed opportunities in wrestling history. I think if he was a year earlier, he would have caught fire.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, so it appears that Nancy Sullivan fell out of her shirt on the show on the September 2nd Nitro, and the camera had to switch to the opposite angle, saving her embarrassment before it happened. Her shirt came off during the finish where she bent over to hold Ric Flair's hands, and while she had the figure 4 on Kevin Sullivan. So I didn't catch this when I was watching, and I think that maybe they cut it out.
Yeah.
But just noting it here for those that, are into like bloopers and things like that. Nancy Sullivan, her shirt came off. So there you go. And then finally here on the September 9th, the September 9th Nitro, Bobby Heenan accidentally called Ming Haku. And Bischoff was emphatic on air that it was an accident. He did an elaborate on-air apology saying Haku was his WWF name and he's in no way associated with the WWF. There's a huge fear of lawsuit ramifications, and that's been a huge change. But I just, I didn't catch it myself when I watched it, but it was interesting that Bischoff went out there and laid it on the line and said, listen, he's not an outsider, I promise.
Yeah, don't sue me. Don't not sue me. Yeah.
So bringing this here as well, I pulled up Meltzer's, and I didn't go through the whole newsletter for the following one about Fall Brawl because it's always a couple weeks later. I wanted to get the feedback from the audience about how they felt in real time about Fall Brawl, and I wanted to bring it here with you. So based on readers of The Observer, and again, that's a very niche audience, it's not the whole audience, but as far as thumbs up goes, 71 people voted 45.5%. Thumbs down was 35.9%. In the middle was 18.6%. The best match of the night was considered Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Super Calo, followed by Conan and Juvi Guerrera. And then Chris Jericho versus Chris Benoit was the third best match, according to quality on the card. This is very aligned with what the Observer readers would probably enjoy watching. All 3 of those matches were bangers.
Yeah.
Worst match on the card, Scott Norton versus Ice Train. Second in the running was War Games, which I don't agree with. I thought it was a great match. Yeah. And then the third worst match was Harlem Heat versus the Nasty Boys. And this is what he had said. Here's what Meltzer had said in totality about Fall Brawl. He said, Fall Brawl, great undercard wrestling, bad main events, and booking with more holes than Swiss cheese. Welcome to WCW. That's how it has been. That's how it will be. If you want to see good matches, be happy because you'll get a lot of them on almost every pay-per-view show now, just not on top. If you want to see good main event matches and don't care about the prelim matches, then you've got the WWF with Shawn Michaels, soon to have Bret Hart, and little undercard depth. If you want booking that makes sense with its own parameters, stick with ECW. When it comes to pay-per-view, the choices are obvious, and at least each side has one strong item on its plate to deliver. Your thoughts on that? That was like really telling as far as the times go. A nice little precursor to us doing ECW 1995. Do you think it was accurate as far as what he was saying there, or you think it's a little bit unfair on his end?
I'll give him this one. This is very accurate. I think ECW was very solid, easy to follow, especially story-wise. And right now, in 1996, they were doing some really crazy-ass stories, like Sandman, Raven, and all this shit. Like, it was good stuff. So, yeah, man, I absolutely get what he's saying. But I will say WCW did have some good main events. It's just not everything hit off the way it was supposed to, or maybe felt a little lackluster in compared to the build-up for it or whatever. I don't think that the whole shows were absolutely dog shit. It's same thing with WWF. So there were some undercard matches that were actually really good. Very good storytelling in it. But, yeah.
Yeah, I just think right now we have, I guess, time has passed and we can look at it with different set of eyes than in current day. And I think a lot of the stink that was on WCW was Hogan. I think people, especially Meltzer, was sick of what Hogan was bringing to the table. And I think he wanted more as far as quality of wrestling goes. And you're not going to get that with guys like Hogan and Savage at this time. They're not giving that quality of matches. But as far as star power goes, think about the guys we're having in these matches. I mean, the fact that you're getting Hogan versus Savage in 96, that draws fans. And there's got to be something to be said about the ratings bump and the amount of people watching wrestling. It's not always about work rate. I know the Chads have been kind of pounding that drum just about great matches. We're getting 4 to 5 star matches on every pay-per-view card, but they want story. Yeah. There was at least a lot of story weaved in and out of this card from week to week. We're left on cliffhangers. There's a lot of it. Not everything made sense, but at least they had explanation for why matches were happening here in 1996. I mean, at some point you have to sacrifice match quality for story, and I think 1996 was a good, I guess, emphasis on that.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, that closes up the newsletter, closes up Happy Hour. I think it's time to get our fix. Talk about WCW Monday Nitro from September 9th, 1996. Let's get there. All right, so as mentioned, WCW Monday Nitro, September 9th, 1996 from Columbus, Georgia, the Civic Center. Let's pop it on the bottom here. The current WCW champions are as followed. Our faithful world champion is Hollywood Hulk Hogan. He won it back on August 10th, 1996. Our U.S. champion is still the Nature Boy Ric Flair. He won it back on July 7th, 1996. Our tag champs are Harlem Heat. July 27th, 1996 is when they won it. Our WCW World Television Champion is Lord Steven Regal. He won it back on August 20th, 1996. And of course, our WCW Cruiserweight Champion, the electrifying, the young, the mighty Rey Mysterio Jr., he won it back on July 8th, 1996. So those are our champions.
Stacked group of people right there. I got no complaints.
Hell yeah. And we open up with our hosts, Tony Schiavone and Larry Zbyszko, and we get right into it with Super Callow that they're building up towards Rey Mysterio at Fall Brawl. You want to take the lead on this match, my friend?
Yeah, man. Listen, you got Pat Tanaka. I mean, coming out looking like a hop sing. just a mess, man. It's hard to get really good stuff with these opening matches. As we've seen in time, you got to come off with a heater. This was not a heater. This was a stinker, and poor Super Callow, man. It was okay. Yeah, it was a short match though. It was only 2 minutes. Nothing to break your fucking your mindset bank account over. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great.
So just to kind of put the emphasis on this match, Super Callow is making his Nitro debut here, and he's going to be heading into the Cruiserweight Championship match against Rey Mysterio. And of course, we get Mike Tenay at ringside, who adds a little bit of flavor. As you mentioned, the match goes 2 minutes and 23 seconds. It's messy, it's exciting, but it's not long enough to make you care about it. Super Callow is going to get a shot. His mask is certainly interesting with the sunglasses over the top of it.
Yeah.
I do enjoy, like during the middle of the match, they had the people outside the Civic Center handing out NWO flyers. So that was cool during the match, and I know we give them a little shit for not focusing on the in-ring action, but there's a story being told. The NWO was ever present throughout the night.
Yeah, paper in the town, man.
Yeah, that's the old way. Social media didn't exist. You got to pass out. And you and I were doing that all during FanFest. Everybody got a Turnbuckle Tavern sticker.
Even Jay Lethal.
Even Jay Lethal got it. Yep, Jay Lethal got one as well. So if Jay Lethal, you're watching, we love you, buddy. Ooh, your Macho Man impression's amazing. So
I'll fight him on that.
So in the back, we have Gene Okerlund talking to Rick Steiner. He talks about facing Lex Luger because he knows he got to beat him last week. Building towards that match, and it seems like a never-ending feud between, Steiners and the Harlem Heat. All these people are kind of tied in together. But Mean Gene Okerlund is really, he does a really good job of staying back. It's weird because for this episode, I've been watching a lot of Mean Gene, obviously, and he's been on our episodes every single week. And the difference between him and current day interviewers is he knows when to step back and when to kind of push buttons. Yeah. And I think more people need to watch Mean Gene for how he was acting on screen, because there's a subtlety about how he interviews people where he's not making himself the star, but he's making the person next to him look even better. And I think that's an art form. No,
it absolutely is. And it's one person, anybody that's looking to do not in-ring wrestling type stuff, look at Mean Gene. Timing is immaculate on that man.
100%. We get a first New World Order t-shirt ad. They talk about buying the shirts. It's funny enough, they said all proceeds go towards the Ric Flair retirement fund. So this shirt, man, who knew? The person that designed it, I hope they're still getting royalties. They're probably not.
No.
But it's like, the person who designed the Nike check, where's that guy now?
Yeah,
exactly. So this logo is, and it never changed. We see logos over time change, and they update things. The New World Order logo was perfect from the first arrival on your screen. And
yeah,
how many times can you say that, especially in pro wrestling? They always want to update things, but the NWO logo and the shirt was perfect, and it never changed.
Yeah, no, I mean, thankfully, because it stood the test of time. That's how impactful it was. I bought a new one just for this podcast when we were doing the debut. So they're still selling these things like hotcakes. It's fucking mind-boggling.
It's crazy, and I think I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it has to be one of the best selling shirts in wrestling history. I can think of maybe the DX shirt, the Austin 316 shirt. Those are probably the three top off the top of my head. But
crazy. It's crazy.
You still see them peppered throughout weekends, and I saw a couple at All Out weekend, which is crazy to think 2022.
Fucking marks.
So, as I mentioned in the newsletter, Glacier finally debuted on WCWC show, which is WCW Pro. They showed his light show entrance, accompanied with loads of snow falling from the ceiling on Nitro. So at least we saw it here.
That's good.
This should have been on Nitro. What are we doing here?
No, listen. You can't debut Bryan Danielson on AEW Dark. It's just not. You can't. You shit the bed already.
I don't think anyone's gotten the treatment that Glacier did as far as promo goes. He's been giving weeks and months and
build up,
and you debut him, and not even WCW Saturday Night. He got on WCW Pro. Who's watching that?
No, I didn't even know it was a thing.
Glacier didn't either. He had his bag ready to come on Nitro, and he's like, "No, you're making the left turn here, go around the corner, and that's your locker room. It's outside. Thank you."
Hey, bub, you're wrestling in a parking lot for hot dogs and handshake.
Exactly. Got to earn your keep, Ray. All right. So our next match here is the Nasty Boys taking on the amazing French Canadians, Jacques Rougeau and Carl Ouellet. So these are the Quebecers, the former Quebecers in WWF. You're yawning. I'm yawning. I do like Carl. Carl right now, he's still wrestling PCO and Ring of Honor, so we see him as well.
Yeah, how crazy. Let's talk about that, because that's the better story out of seeing them on Nitro. PCO's a fucking madman.
Crazy. And he's former Ring of Honor world champion. He's still doing his thing. He's posting vignettes on his Instagram where he's destroying wood and nails and hammering nails with his hands. He's going out there, and he's like the Frankenstein gimmick now, but who would have thought back in 96 where he's doing this amazing French-Canadian gimmick, and even back when he's doing the Quebecer thing in WWF, that he would have another indie run in him where he'd be a world champion in Ring of Honor.
He was over, too, man. Talk about reinventing yourself. The guy's a monster.
So this match, obviously there's been talk about them. They wanted to bring them to Montreal and put them over big. And there's been a lot of talk about Jacques Rougeau going over Hogan in that non-televised match. And rumor has it happened. And who knows if it happened. And I think Hogan denies that it happened. I don't know.
We need to see the tapes.
We need to see the tape, brother. So this match goes 3 minutes and 27 seconds. The Nasty Boys get the win here. They want the tag belts. They're trying to get the tag belts from Harlem Heat. The feud never ends. It was nice seeing Carl and Jacques here on Nitro, but just like when Rock and Roll appear here, it feels like a one-off. And I don't know how much we see of them going forward, but they don't really appear much on our card.
Yeah, no, it's like a mystery. Like, you guys go hang out in catering in case we need you. All right, Rock and Roll Express, get your asses out there.
So, whatever. I mean,
yeah, man.
Over my shoulder, I got the Mountie figure as well. So there's some love for that gimmick, and it fits the '90s. But again, one of those bygone things that as we move towards realistic booking and realistic storytelling, you move away from something like that. And imagine PCO in 1996 WCW, that might have gotten over.
Dude, he probably would have took down the NWO by himself.
We needed him.
Yeah.
But we got more flyers being passed out during the match. It seems to be a theme throughout the whole night.
You get paper in the town, man. Paper in the town.
All right, so paper the town with this next match. Scott Norton, Sergeant Craig Pittman. This dog shit match.
Listen, you know how much of a big fucking Craig Pittman fan I am. The best thing about Craig Pittman is Teddy Long comes on TV at least.
True.
Scott Norton's not quite NWO yet. It's a submission match. This was terrible. It was funny. Nothing on paper about this sounds like a great idea. Like, talk about bad booking. This might be, since we started doing this, one of the biggest yawn openings for Nitro ever. Ice Train came out through in the towel for Pittman. Keep the man from getting his arm broken. It was a 3-minute match. It felt like fucking 2 hours. It was just
Why
awful.
are we doing Ice Train and Scott Norton in a submission match at Fall Brawl? Why? I know they used to be a tag team, Fire and Ice, but can't we just have a normal grudge match? Neither one of these guys, I know he does an armbar, but they're not these technical wrestlers. It's not Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho. I don't want to see these guys in submission match.
Yeah, and you know what? It was like, especially back then, MMA wasn't as big as it is. So like the submission match thing, it's kind of, unless it's like Sting, unless you know the guy has a finish that is a fucking submission move. Like, don't do this. What are you doing? Bad Bischoff.
Bad Bischoff. What are you doing? Get the paper, roll it up. Hold on, we got to hit him on the nose.
Yeah.
So in the back, Gene Okerlund has Flair, Arn Anderson, and Luger for an interview. Sting's not present. Lex is saying he's going to be here. Don't worry, he has our back. But Flair and Arn Anderson are questioning Sting's reliability. Mongo and Benoit stop by to tell Flair and Double A that they knew they couldn't count on anybody but the Four Horsemen themselves. Luger says, guys, don't worry. Sting will be there at Fall Brawl. Trust me, he's a reliable guy. He's still not there. So we're seeing, again, we'll get to what happens here with the fake Sting. We're seeing signs because we're only a month away from Crow Sting debuting, being the ever-watching presence in WCW, in the rafters, kind of losing his mind because WCW, it has gone to shit in his mind. So he wants to disappear for a bit and change his whole persona. I'm getting very excited that he's going to be appearing as Crow Sting. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, no, we got to see him this weekend at FanFest, just doing his thing, man. Still rocking the Crow gimmick after all these years and looking like a fucking badass.
Yeah, you and I were talking in the seats it all out. Imagine him doing one last run as the Surfer Sting. I'm not saying bleach blonde his hair, but like do the paint, and even if you wear the exact same attire, wear the shirt, wear the pants, wear the face paint, but do more of a vibrant feel to it. I think that'd be it would be a cool thing on like a beach break or something on Dynamite. I would like to see him one more time as Surfer Sting.
Just once. I don't want him to do a run like him and Darby with the blonde hair.
Oh man! Imagine Darby paint. And like Surfer Sting stuff and like brighter colors.
I would fuck with it, man.
Miami Vice, Darby Allin.
Yeah,
I'm all in on that. All right, so I would be in on that. If someone wants to Photoshop that or like one of those Fig Freak, I got a job for you. Fig Freak, are you listening? I want you to take a nice photo of Sting and Darby, and I want you to edit the colors. You're beautiful at what you do, and I want to see it. Please, if you're watching Fig Freak, we love you. Please do that.
Get it, brother.
You guys follow Fig Freak on Instagram. He's amazing. He does great fig photography. He's a great supporter of the show. Support our friend Fig Freak. He does a great job. So
absolutely. His tag is at the Fig Freak, but freak is spelled Freek. Go get that man some love.
Give him some love. Everybody likes love.
Yeah, brother love.
All right, so we like love, but there's no love in this match. Juvi Guerrero is taking on Joe Gomez, and this match was an absolute freaking disaster.
Yeah.
It doesn't make Juventud look good going into Fall Brawl, where he's going to be facing Conan for that Mexican World Heavyweight Championship. His moves weren't getting and connecting with Gomez at all, and I'm not sure whose fault it was. I would assume it's Joe Gomez's fault, because everything's Joe Gomez's fault.
Yep.
So they quickly go home with a Hilo con plancha, which is a springboard corkscrew splash. He gets the win over Gomez, 2 minutes and 12 seconds. It seems like they just ended the match because they weren't clicking, and I think they panicked. And not that they have a lot invested in Juventud here, and like that match is not a prominent match on the card. But Juventud, who's only just debuted a couple weeks ago, this is not what you want to show people what he can do in the ring.
Yeah. And this is, like, so far, this is not what you want for a go-home show to a pay-per-view.
So far, so bad. And we'll get an angle being shot. We talk about story being told. But before we get to the next match, we have Gene Okerlund with Nick Patrick with him. And he wants Patrick to explain why he DQ'd Lex last week. He said everybody hates him because Gene keeps stirring the pot, even though he's just doing his job. Everybody's lying. He's not in the pocket of the New World Order. Nick Patrick threatens to take Gene to court if he doesn't shut his mouth. So I like what they're doing with Nick Patrick. I think there's a lot of room in wrestling, for dirty referees. And I know that goes against everything that, friend of the podcast, Robert King, who he's a referee formerly on the Tavern. He was kind of going to school for us and explaining refereeing and the importance of it and how you do it. We had a great conversation with him.
Hell yeah.
In Chicago. Great guy. You guys can also check him out on Instagram. It's interesting because I wonder how he would feel about Nick Patrick being part of the storylines. I have a feeling he wouldn't like it.
I don't know. I thought it was done very elegantly here. I don't think it was bad. I thought there was a lot of fun with it. A lot of goofy shit. Like this exact thing we're talking about, him threatening the sue Mean Gene, and like it was a lot of fun play there. And I miss when they would give the refs something, like it's not just get in there, no name referee, do your thing. It's like, Nick Patrick screwed over Lex Luger. Give him some story. Why'd you do that? Well, I'm a shitty ref. That's why. I'm a piece of shit that works for the NWO.
No, I enjoy it myself, but I think it brings a lot of attention on him, and I don't think it took away at all. I think this is really well done because they're not blatantly turning him heel. He's saying he's run into some bad luck. He's just incompetent, I guess, in his not saying it, but he's just like, listen, you guys are saying I'm for the NWO. It just happens that the decisions I'm part of are going in their favor. I think it's a really well done story.
Yeah.
So we continue in the parking lot where the NWO are placing their flyers on everybody's cars. It's pouring rain outside. Ted DiBiase is standing outside the limo under an umbrella talking to somebody in the car. Who's he talking to? We don't know. So, again, they're trying to tease another member. It seems like that's their go-to. The suspense, it's like they don't want to, try something new. They're just like, let's just tease another member. We know that works.
Yeah.
So before we move to the Steiner and Luger match, we have a Saturday night commercial, which, again, I love this as well. They talk about DDP taking on Jim Duggan. Rick Steiner is wrestling Kurosawa. Lex Luger, Scott Norton, Chris Benoit, the Nasty Boys, and more in action. It's the mothership, baby. Windows and Funda, baby. So, huge fan of the WCW Saturday Night. I haven't had time to watch Saturday Night. I was peppering them in with my Nitro rewatches. I want to kind of get more of the Saturday Night vibe if I have to fill some gaps, if I'm just spending some time in between. I recommend that you guys do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to watch these Saturday nights. They're not important at all. They don't advance a lot of storyline, but the aesthetics are very nostalgic. And I just think there's a lot of hidden gems on those Saturday nights and they're in full on Peacock. So check it out.
Yeah, if Peacock ever has the balls to pull up Shotgun Saturday Night with WWF, that would be a fun season of Shot of Nostalgia, is doing both Saturday shows back to back.
Oh man, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Shotgun Saturday Night, and I remember they did a whole podcast on it for Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. They talked about the concept of Shotgun Saturday Night being like this late night club show, and it became, just one of those one-offs taped canned shows that in arenas that used to be taped after or before Raw. But before that, it used to be live, right? Like it was live late at night. Is that
it would be like a bar setting, or
So
obviously the infamous train station of Undertaker pile driving Triple H on the escalator.
So sick.
It was fantastic.
You may be onto something with that. Maybe a mini season we do some Shotgun Saturday Nights or some special bonus episodes if you and I stop being so goddamn busy.
They got to put Shotgun Saturday Nights on the network though, man. It's not there.
All right, so that will be the determining factor. If they decide to add that, we will do a mini season of pick a year with Shotgun. It would be like 98, right? 98.
I think they only went. I only think it only went for like a good maybe year and a half.
It was 98, 99? Because I know Edge won the IC title on Shotgun once.
Yeah. Bone crunching action figures, Shotgun Saturday Night.
Yes,
hand in hand.
Yeah, Mountain Dew, 1998. Domino's Pizza.
Surge Cola.
All right, so Surge is back, by the way. I don't know if you.
I know it. It tastes like shit still, but.
All right, so hour number 2, Eric Bischoff, Bobby Heenan, and Mike Tenay join us with some fireworks in the background. Take it away, Rick Steiner versus Lex Luger, my friend.
My goodness, this was the longest match that went absolutely nowhere I've ever watched. Listen, you got Rick. Amazing in-ring talent, Lex. Some good back and forth. Had a decent time watching this one, actually, compared to the shitstorm that hour 1 was. But, we got our first no contest here. We get Rick Steiner winning by a count out. This is not a no contest. He got the W. But, man, 6 minutes, 58 seconds. It was going to be really, really good, and it was just
Yeah, Nick Patrick was part of the finish as well again, so we go with Luger exploding out of the corner with the steel-plated bionic forearm smash, which they're still selling, the steel-plated forearm, which is amazing. Hits the power slam, calls for the torture rack, and Nick Patrick runs down and calls Luger to come out to the parking lot. Come out and see what's going on. Rick gets the win, 6 minutes and 58 seconds with a count out. So we have a shot of nostalgia to take.
That crooked fuck.
Crooked referee, Nick Patrick.
Saving the planet. Got myself a good old flask.
Woo! So now we have the camera behind, and I love this. The camera's trailing Nick Patrick and Lex Luger going to the parking lot, and DiBiase's there. We can't see in the limo, but we can hear someone talking, and the voice belongs to Sting. Sounds like a soundbite I've heard Sting say about a year ago, or whether or not to trust Luger. So they kind of pulled the same stuff they did in that I Quit match in 99, where The Rock had filmed in 1999, I quit, and they played on the microphone, and then The Rock won the title. So Sting is in the NWO's limo, and Luger confronts DiBiase, and that's where Sting is, and just like that, Sting pops out of the limo and starts beating down Luger to the ground. Shocking. The rest of the New World Order come out of the second limo to join on the beatdown. DiBiase even puts the boots to Luger. Out of anger, Lex grabs the chauffeur and slings him about 20 feet as the New World Order retreat in the cars. Lex Luger looks distraught. What were your thoughts on this? And did it fool you for a second that this was Sting, or you kind of you remember it well?
No, I was like, man, Sting's going to be joining the NWO. Shit's getting wild here. Lex Luger's a terrible actor. Like, I can't stand it. And but yeah, no, they fooled me for a minute. I was ready for it. I was like, hell yeah, black and white Stinger face paint, like, not knowing the future coming up. But yeah, it was interesting.
So we have some more recaps of last week, and then they show moments ago Sting jumping out of the NWO limo and starts attacking Luger. It was a wide shot of Sting, and it was raining. So when you're watching this, especially back in 1996, you probably thought it was Sting, especially if you're 10 years old or whatever age you were at the time. Now the problem is during the War Games match, when you have to put him in the match, you can't just film wide shots. You can't hide the angles. He's going to be under bright lights. it's going to be very, very obvious that it's not Sting. So you kind of book yourself in a weird corner here where unless you're a child watching this, he's not wearing a mask. He's not the same. Once you see him up close, it's not Sting. But I think at the moment, it does age well. I thought this was really well done because for a second, it got me too. I'm like, oh shit, Sting, what is he doing here? I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, no, it was done very well, and you got to remember you had those very pixelated televisions back in the day too. So this kind of shit goes over pretty quick and pretty easy. Like you believe it, you're instantly believing it.
So we have the WCW World Cruiserweight Championship on the line. Rey Mysterio taking on Billy Kidman. This match was 1 minute and 38 seconds. I don't understand why these guys are so short. This was the best match of the Cruiserweight matches tonight. This is definitely interesting considering that they do feud late into 98, 99. I think they do kind of link up in 2003 when they're both there in the Cruiserweight division. It's an absolute squash job. Rey head scissors Kidman to the floor, whips him in the guardrail, gives him a somersault. We see a lot of Rey's kind of hits here.
Yeah.
Rey rolls to the apron, levels Kidman with a springboard somersault senton for a 3 count. Kidman, who's been looking good from week to week, did not look good this week. I mean, selling-wise, he did, but kayfabe-wise, got absolutely destroyed by the Cruiserweight Champion. They're trying to build him strong going into Fall Brawl against Super Callow.
Yeah, no, and it is weird because, like, obviously we see how talented both of these guys are down the line. We know Rey's huge, but, like, you couldn't cut 3 minutes off of something else from the first hour and give this an extra, couple minutes, like, and make it fun, and I don't know. And that kind of booking just blows my fucking mind.
It was very weird. So 1 minute and 38 seconds. It's kind of shocking to see that number on your screen, especially with these two guys that have motors that can go all day.
Yeah.
So, Bischoff in the middle of this match talking about the Sting stuff. He seems absolutely distraught, really selling that Sting turned heel. Really selling it. So that was cool.
Bischoff good. Bischoff was great on commentary. Probably one of the most underrated commentary guys they had back in the day. I thought I loved him every time. It was always fun. He always sold the shit out of everything.
Speaking of Bischoff, not to go too far on a tangent, he did go off a little bit about the Punk stuff and talk about how he would handle it in Tony Khan's spot. So if you guys want to check that out, he pretty much says he would have fired him on the spot. So, I mean, easier said than done.
Yeah.
Say Hogan did this to Eric Bischoff. Do you knee-jerk reaction, you think Bischoff would have fired Hogan on the spot? Or no, right? Yeah.
No,
okay.
not at all. Yeah. I mean, different time, different day and age, different shit going on, but no way in hell would Bischoff fire Hogan, the top draw, just because he buried the 4 Horsemen, which he does every fucking week on TV.
Very
Those
true.
Mindless old men.
I'm tired, I'm old, and I work with Hulk Hogan. All right. So take the lead on the next match here. We got Face of Fear with Jimmy Hart taking on Public Enemy.
Yeah, man. I don't know what was wrong with this Nitro. It's lackluster as hell. Public Enemy doing their thing. It's a shit gimmick. Faces of Fear, at least, fantastic. But like this is, we know what we were getting into here. This is like watching any Public Enemy match. There's just bullshit going on. Like at least Faces of Fear were able to hold some shit down, but it ends in a DQ. Yeah, it's just not digging it. 10 minutes. This could have took 5 minutes off of and given it to Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman, and we would have had at least like a 3-star match on Nitro this week.
100%. And I think like looking at the finish, it was hard to even know if this was a DQ or not because we were left like guessing it was a DQ because the Dungeon and Doom are coming out and they're joining the Face of Fear and Jimmy Hart, and that means Kevin Sullivan, Big Bubba, Hugh Morris, and the newest member Max Muscle and Conan are teaming up. So who cares? Like, what are we doing?
And now you got the NWO there. They're the faction. They're fucking around with the WCW, like the Horsemen and shit like that. And here we are, Kevin Sullivan, just making random shit out of the fucking talent lot the roster page. He's just like, well, let's put him. He's playing fucking action figure fed. Like it's like, oh, we're gonna put Max Muscle and Conan in there with Kevin Saul, like, or with Big Bubba and Hugh Morris, and like it doesn't fucking, none of it makes sense, man. Stupid. Sorry.
I'd like to buy our anti-Taskmaster shirt. Yeah. It's on the Teespring store. I'm a proud owner of it. It's a great shirt. I'm a big Kevin Sullivan fan now, but maybe you're not. So,
Yeah.
DQ finish. We're going to take a shot for this. So let's take a shot for Kevin Sullivan.
Shouldn't even close the flask. Just keep it open at this point.
Yeah, well, we got another one following this. So.
Cheers, man.
All right, cheers, brother.
To Kevin Sullivan's shitty booking.
Ooh, make sure you refill that up because we do have another count out that follows that. Spoiler alert. So, Kevin Sullivan has the tongue and death grip of doom on the booking. We move towards the main event here, which is John Tenta, a.k.a. Earthquake, a.k.a.
I thought he was gone.
The Shark. What was his name? What was his name in the oddities?
Kurgan. No, was it Kurgan?
Not Kurgan.
No, Kurgan was the big guy. Did he even have a name in the oddities?
Yes, he did. I'll think of it in a second. But anyway, formerly known as Earthquake and the Shark.
That's all I know. He came out with Carbon.
Taking on Randy Savage, and this match goes 3 minutes even, and John Tenta gets the win here via countout. So the way this goes, we get a flying double axe handle, sets up the Macho Elbow. He delivers another one, but Teddy Long calls for Savage to come in the back. Once again, the New World Order helps a guy win via countout. It's the same thing, the same finish we just saw with Luger and Rick Steiner, whatever. So we go to the back. One of the limo drives off. As they leave, one of the limos behind. Savage is searching the car, and all he finds is yellow spray paint. So the WCW guys make good use of it and spray the WCW letters on it. So before we end the show, we have the Horsemen going to the announce desk. Arn is talking to Bobby and takes his headset and accuses Hogan of always wanting to be a Horseman, which is why he's picking every thug and cutthroat in the world to be on his side. And now he's got Sting. They're really selling the fact that Sting joined the NWO. Before he hands the headset over to Rick, he vows to take Sting's head off in the cage. And he said Sunday night, Hogan, you don't have a chance. Winston-Salem, you will not leave town alive. So Bischoff agrees that bringing Hogan to WCW 2 years ago was a mistake, just like Tony Khan admits bringing the CM Punk was a mistake. No, I'm joking. The card is set for Fall Brawl. As we mentioned, we have Luger and a mystery partner, Flair and Arn versus the New World Order in the War Games match. We have the Giant versus Savage. The tag team titles are on the line with Harlem Heat and the Nasty Boys. Benoit versus Jericho. We have the Cruiserweight Championship, Rey Mysterio versus Super Calo. The Heavyweight Championship of Mexico, Conan versus Juventud Guerrera. Scott Norton versus Ice Train. And of course, DDP in his emerging gimmick versus Chavo Guerrero. So that is our Nitro. We move into Fall Brawl. Oof. Did we take a shot for... We got to take a shot for the count out, right? All right.
But, yeah, and this pay-per-view... or not this pay-per-view, this Nitro.
One of the worst Nitros I've seen, actually. And it's weird because they're in such a really... They're in a groove as far as booking goes. They don't have the ability to put this go-home show together at all. It never really got going.
Yeah, wild.
All right. Ooh. So that brings us to Fall Brawl, which is the autumn pay-per-view. It's a tradition here in WCW, airing September 15th, 1996 from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, the LJVM Coliseum. And our current champs are all the same. As we mentioned, everybody retained their titles. No titles on the line. No titles change hands. And we open up with our pay-per-view crew. It's Tony Schiavone, Dusty Rhodes, and Bobby Heenan. It doesn't get better than that. I love when Dusty's on the pay-per-view call.
Love when Dusty's there. Talk about the steel cages, man. We got 2 rings. It's gonna be crazy. We're like Michael Jordan. We got 2 rings. It's 1996. That's great.
So our opening match here, DDP versus Chavo Guerrero. This one shocked me of how good it actually was. I thought it was really well booked. And it played off the finish from a couple weeks ago. The Diamond Cutter super over, as we've been talking about it. Psychological continuity throughout this match, and it really told a good story. So you want to take the lead here as far as what went on in this match?
Well, yeah, no, listen, I mean, you got DDP's building up. He's getting really good. Chavo, baby Chavo here.
Chavito.
Full head, Chavito. He's got the full head of hair. He's got the little mustache. Uncle Eddie. They put on a hell of a match. Like, this was really, really good. And refreshing after watching that Nitro like this. You know, I'm watching them in order. I know you're watching them in order. Like, this is what I mean. This is how you start off a show. It was back-to-back, really good wrestling, but nobody, and I mean nobody, kicks out of the Diamond Cutter, baby. 13 minutes. That's a fucking solid opener for a show, and 2 great wrestlers, man. I love Chavo. Chavo's got it, man.
Hell yeah. And I think with the diamond cutter, it's getting over so huge that the fans are, as soon as he even goes in position for it, it's so over. And I think that really helps him take the next step into the main event, obviously. And he's really coming to his own. And when you watch him, he's not fully the DDP, the People's Champion from the next year that will take the New World Order on head on, but he's close. Like, he's right there, and it's really awesome to see.
Night and day from when we started this podcast to where he is now, and he's not even in full transition yet.
So, just a note here, it's supposed to be Eddie versus DDP in this match, but he's in Japan on tour under the Black Tiger mask, so just a little fun note that Chavo got the call up to the big card because his Uncle Eddie was off doing Japanese wrestling, so
yeah,
pretty cool.
Love Tiger Mask.
So we have our next match here. Well, first we have a WCW special report, and he brings everybody up to date concerning the NWO WCW war, dating all the way back to Memorial Day. It's been going on for that long, when Scott Hall first showed up, and Sting this Monday joined the New World Order, and everyone up until this date does believe that the New World Order has Sting in their trenches. And,
yeah,
you know, you guys covered on Sessions a couple weeks ago the Triple H versus the Sting match at WrestleMania 31 in San Francisco. Yeah. And this even further emphasizes how off base that match really was booking-wise, because even when we thought he joined the New World Order, it was so out of alignment with his character, he never did. You know what I mean? Like, the Wolfpack became his thing. He did wear black and white. It's just it's lazy booking on the end of WWE's part. And I co-sign what you're saying. Like, as a WWE fan, it's easy to look past all the holes in the storytelling, but it became very evident as I'm watching WCW. Like, I understand why you're really angry, and I empathize with it.
No, and I'm not going to go out on a tangent about it, but like, even when I seen just the NWO coming out, and like, JBL's the only one that made sense of anything, and he was still like, they're sworn enemies, baby. They're here for Triple H, and they're going to take out Sting. It was like, don't do this to me. Like, we're not dumb. Go rewatch Shot of Nostalgia. Get your fix. Get your shit, and like, figure out your Sting shit, man.
All right, so we're not going to spend too much time on this match. It's the Ice Train taking on Scott Norton in that submission match. We talked about the breakup of Fire and Ice. Armbar.
Yeah.
We see Ice Train get the win over Scott Norton here. Ice Train applies the full Nelson, got Norton face down on the mat for the submission. 5 minutes and 17 seconds. If you need to skip anything on the card, it's this.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're trying to build new stars here. Like, and again, it's hard to watch here. Like, maybe they thought Ice Train would be this next emerging star in WCW. I just don't see it.
No.
So it's hard to watch. I mean, they tried hitting moves like the Boston Crab, the Fujiwara armbar. Just, again, like you mentioned, armbar. Good morning. There's just no emphasis on technical wrestling with these two guys. They're big muscle-bound guys. I just don't see the appeal of a submission match here. It's hard to do in itself, but when two guys are not submission wrestlers, it comes off even worse.
Well, and they're not like, that's what I mean. They're not established enough to people go, oh yeah, Scott Norton goes in there and does a Fujiwara armbar. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah.
So take us in this next match. This is Hoogie's pay-per-view debut.
Yes.
And this match goes pretty long, but I mean, pretty good here.
So this is great wrestling, and so you got Viva la Raza, you got the Conan.
He's back. Out. This is the Conan I know.
This is like the Conan I was like waiting for the entire. No more, superhero colors. No more AAA gear. He's just black and white and Conan all over, baby. I actually had a dream about Conan last night, but he had dreadlocks.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah, no, I forget the setting, but he walked into the place that we were all like hanging out, and he said, "Olale."
Can I put music on in the background really quick?
Yeah, right.
While you're telling the story, hold on.
Please, let's do it.
Right, go ahead.
So Conan comes in, and he's got dreadlocks down to his back, and he does the "Olale," and I did "Viva la Raza," and he looked at me and he was like, "You stole my fucking gimmick." That was it. That was all. It was flannel, dressed like he does in ring gear, and I was just like, damn. I just stole all of his thunder, man.
That was beautiful. And this is the Conan I recognize. He showed up on Nitro the week before, and I texted him like, wow, Conan's back in the khakis. And they do make note of it, that he's going back to his roots. He's going to dress like he does at home, and he doesn't have to dress in tights because he's turned heel. He never really goes back to the tights, right? This is kind of his look for the rest of time, right?
This is Conan from 1996 till now. It's crazy.
You can make an argument, though, that this is why his body... He never became a body guy again because he didn't have to be. He wrestled under a shirt.
Man. Damn shirt wrestlers.
Yeah, he wore the tank top and the khakis, and because you and I talk about when he's on the screen, he's sneaky jacked. Like when
he's huge, yeah.
And he eventually becomes kind of one of those guys, like with the Filthy Animals with Rey Mysterio. He's just like a chubby guy.
Yeah, just button flannel, rocking his thing, doing his stuff. But don't let the T-shirt wrestler myths take away from how great this match was, because it was really, really, really good. Your Mexican heavyweight champion, Conan, defeated Juventud Guerrero in 13 minutes, 45 seconds with that beautiful Splash Mountain, baby.
This match was really good, and I was impressed with Juventud Guerrero, but this is another example of them debuting a WCW wrestler, and they just keep losing. So, like, Juvi's, like... And whatever, it's a different way of doing things. I guess I'm indoctrinated with the Fed brain of like WWE. They make guys win over and over again to emphasize that they're talented, but WCW relies on Mike Tenay and history and us and the announcers telling you why they are good and they will be good, and they got to get some reps under them before they start winning matches. So it's two different approaches. I'm not sure which one's right, but
imagine if like AJ Styles debuts at the Royal Rumble. We have a Mike Tenay there going, "Oh my God, it's AJ Styles! Lustrous career, been taking over the New Japan scene. He was TNA champion." Like, you would be like, "Damn, I get that," but instead they just show Roman Reigns when AJ's
the camera angle
just fuck the whole thing up.
So you mentioned this match. I mean, this is a standard Hoovy match. He's a little bit sloppy, and he never really gets more tight than this. But that kind of makes Hoovy who he is. Like, he's kind of erratic in the ring, and I think that makes him. It's a good thing, not a bad.
I thought Conan was a little sloppy in this too. I'm not gonna lie. There was he did that drop kick off the apron to the outside, and like it just looked shitty. But it was like still, this is how you make talent. You put on a Nitro like that. And then you throw these two guys in the ring afterwards, and you're like, man, this was a fucking 5-star, like, time limit draw. Like, let's do it.
So speaking of pay-per-view debuts, this is Jericho's pay-per-view debut in WCW. So we've saw this version of Jericho at All Out. The Lionheart debuts here, taking on Chris Benoit. And these guys have a storied history that's only just beginning here in WCW. They did wrestle a few times in Mexico and in Japan, but this is the first time the North American audience for WCW or WWE would see these guys. Benoit absolutely is just destroying Jericho from the jump, going in there as the veteran. Benoit applies the Lion Tamer. We see all the classic moves. Jericho hitting the Tiger Suplex. We see the Swan Dive Headbutt. We see some hard-hitting clotheslines of Rope Hurricane Rana. The finish goes 14 minutes and 46 seconds, and Benoit gets the win. So Jericho launches him from the top of the corner, but gets a crotched for a back suplex from Benoit, and Benoit gets with the superplex. So you would think it'd be a submission, knowing both these guys. It's, we talk about non-submission wrestlers with Benoit and with with Norton and with Ice Train. Benoit wasn't quite doing the crossface yet. He was delivering other moves such as the abdominal stretches and the other arm bars. Great match. I mean, go out and watch this. These guys are at the emergence of like really taking the next step, and these are future world champions in both promotions. Obviously, Jericho never gets his shine here in WCW, but he's the first ever undisputed champion, future AEW champion. Benoit wins the world championship in WWE from Triple H at WrestleMania 20. So there's a lot, only a few years away heading here, and they're only a few years away from heading to WWE. Both on their different paths. Obviously, you saw Jericho debut in 99, and Benoit wasn't far after with the Radicals. Man, Benoit, Jericho, they were like made for each other. We were talking about the AEW Rapper Show, Sammy and Darby are made for each other. This is more of the same with Benoit and Jericho.
Yeah, no, and at a high level, like you couldn't get a better two dudes to tear each other apart in the ring, and it was always fun, always entertaining. It's wild, man.
This was probably match of the night as far as in-ring quality goes. Like, if you're going to watch one match as far as trying to understand the high level of wrestling that you were getting here, you weren't seeing this in the mid-card in WWF at the time.
No.
Like, Shawn Michaels, maybe you'd get some good matches with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart at the top of the card, but this is smack dab middle in the card, and they are just going out there and giving their all. 15 minutes of just perfect action that you couldn't miss, and it was awesome.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man.
All right, next match here, we have the Cruiserweight Championship on the line. It's Rey Mysterio, Super Callow. Lead us through here.
Super Callow coming out hot, making his pay-per-view debut. It's a tongue twister.
That's 4 debuts on this night.
Like the Horsemen, man. This was fucking hot back and forth. Rey Mysterio Cruiserweight action and Super Callow held his own, kicked so much ass. I thought it was really good. Super Callow was not like super over, and he like still trying to feel him out a little bit. I, like you said earlier, I do love the aesthetics with the sunglasses built into the mask. The dude's got a good look. But, I mean, come on, you're in the ring with Rey Mysterio. You think you're going to win? Absolutely not. 5 minutes, 50 seconds, gets that Hurricane Rana going. 1, 2, 3. Your beautiful winner and champion, Rey Mysterio Jr. It was good. It was probably one of the better matches of the pay-per-view, too. Like, we really got stacked this last 3 matches. It was bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, I think Callow's issue was that he didn't separate himself enough from anybody else on the card. He just felt like a generic lucha.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a bad thing. Like, he went out there and did his thing, and he was solid in the ring. But when you have Rey Mysterio on the card, where he's Rey Mysterio, he's the cream of the crop as far as cruiserweights go, you have to differentiate yourself in a different way, and that's why the crowd wasn't really grasping towards Super Callow. But looking at this match, they're doing stuff that's revolutionary. Like, this is stuff that you see on the daily with Rey Fenix and Penta and Pac. They're all doing that stuff on TV on a weekly basis. But this was not being done because this is on the same card as the Nasty Boys and Hogan. As you mentioned, this match, 15 minutes and 50 seconds, and this was amazing. Like, this was a really, really good match, and it's setting up for Mysterio Malenko for Halloween Havoc. And the belt wasn't in danger. You knew that Mysterio wasn't losing this match, but still, it was a lot of fun. And the Cruiserweight division is on fire right now.
Yeah, listen, Super Callow is no JL. He's not carrying the whole damn show on his shoulders, you know.
That is a true fact. We have up next the WCW World Tag Team Championship on the line, and you can feel a significant turn in the card as far as match quality goes. We have Harlem Heat defeating the Nasty Boys. This match goes 15 minutes and 31 seconds, and it went only 20 seconds less than the other match, but this one felt significantly longer.
Yep.
Although, though, this was the best Heat and Nasty Boy match we've seen. That's not saying a whole lot based on their history together, because the Nasty Boys, it's like pulling them through mud, man. They can't keep up. I don't understand. I mean, I do get politically that they are friends with Hogan and they have connections, but they have no business being in matches on pay-per-view, but also being in a tag title match. There's so many other tag teams in this company that could be feuding for the titles, and why do we keep seeing this repeat of the Harlem Heat and the Nasty Boys? Harlem Heat is so far and above better than they are. Like I said, you know, Sherry gets involved, Colonel Parker gets involved, we get some shenanigans here. Again, don't understand why Harlem Heat just can't go over clean here. Why do the Nasty Boys need to be protected? Not my favorite, but again, coming off of the Jericho and Benoit match and then the Rey Mysterio and Callow match, anything would have been a downgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, it wasn't the worst of their outings. But I feel like these matches are kind of like WCW still being stuck in the beginning of '96, and they haven't fully transitioned to where they're going. Like this is one of those things that was an early '96 whole fucking shit show. You know, this belonged on Uncensored. It was one of those things. So
right.
But like drag it, it's time to swap it out. Get rid of it, man. Like they got to be pulling the pulse or pulling the finger, or pulling the trigger a lot sooner on like making things follow the lead of the NWO kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of making like this goofy shit. This fucking goofy.
And the Nasty Boys are just goofy. You're right. Like no one cares. Like the armpit, like the gimmick is done. And unless they're going to evolve and like have something about them, they're just fat guys who don't do much. Like we already have that with Public Enemy, and I don't even like them on the card. So like,
Public Enemy's miles above the Nasties.
Right.
I'll give them that. But the Nasties, like the Nasty Boys is a gimmick that worked in like 1991. Like, oh, we're big bad bullies. We smell like, you know, suck my armpit and like just dumb shit. It's fucking Stupid.
All right, so we have Mike Tenay grabbing Randy Savage for an interview, and I kind of want you to do this right here where he's, I have the quote here written in our notes. Even though he's got the Giant tonight, he's thinking about what, Mike Belcaster?
He's thinking about ripping Hogan's black heart right out of his chest, damn it. Yeah.
So that leads us right into the Giant and Randy Savage. I guess talk to us here. We got the Giant coming out to the Dungeon of Doom music, by the way, in the beginning, and the production truck catches it and realize, wow, he's part of the New World Order now, guys. Like they were part of one of the biggest angles in wrestling history. So maybe change
bad
music.
People music. Yeah.
Can we get the New World Order music, please? So if you could take the lead here and tell us what goes on in this match.
Seriously, I was very, very disappointed with this match. It was very lame. Not what I was expecting out of the Macho Madness and the Giant at this point. I mean, the Giant was super over, doing a great job as the champ. He joins the NWO. Get that this is like that, but not enough to make you like, oh man, eventually he hits the Macho Elbow Drop, but Hogan comes out, the distractions, Savage is running after him. It's just like a goofy shit show. Hall and Nash are, sitting out there, and yeah, it was a long, disappointing Randy Savage match. 7 minutes, 47 seconds. The Giant wins.
Yeah, and I know that they had to do the match at Halloween Havoc between Randy and Hogan. That was like in the deal with Slim Jim, and we talked about that on the newsletter. But this is how you build Randy Savage up for a world title match against Hogan. He loses to the Giant, and he looks kind of silly too. He doesn't make the smartest decisions. I understand the Giant can go over.
Yeah,
it's the way he went over. That Savage looks kind of like incompetent and immature as a competitor because he kind of falls for all the traps that the NWO lay for him.
Even you think since he's been so paranoid all year, he'd be like, "No, I'm not going for that, brother."
So we have the segment for the main event here in the back. Sting confronts Arn, Flair, and Luger apparently for the first time all week. He tells them he wasn't at Nitro on Monday, and that the guy who is with the New World Order isn't him at all. Nobody seems to believe him, so Sting tells his team he'll see them out there and walks away. So legend has it too, and I saw it in the newsletter, and forgive me if I mentioned it or didn't mention it. Sting was the reason why he wasn't on Nitro that week, as he was doing a tour in Japan.
Yeah,
and I'll talk about this during the match. I believe I wrote it in my notes that he wasn't even aware of the angle. Like I think he didn't understand. Like no one explained to him what they did last week, and I think the disconnect in communication was evident. I think with some of his behavior throughout the match, because when he came out, I think he was supposed to be selling the fact that it's a surprise that he's back, but it comes off really weird. And Meltzer kind of explains in detail that no one explained to him that they were doing this fake Sting angle, so he wasn't even prepared to like sell it well at all.
Wait, and then fake Sting was biting people backstage after the pay-per-view.
Did you catch the Colt Cabana above my shoulder over here?
No, I did not. Where is he?
He's you can see him above the Jim Duggan.
There he is. Yeah.
He shares the bank account with his mom, so I figured he'd put him up there. He needed some room and lodge,
Yeah, we should make a Colt Cabana piggy bank.
Yes, we should. Turnbuckle, Colt Cabana piggy bank. You put $1 in, your mom puts $1 in, and you get $2. That's how it works.
And it fills up Colt's belly, and he gets really happy.
I'm tired, I'm old, and I share a bank account with my mom. All right, so this match here is the War Games match. We have Hollywood Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and the NWO fake Sting with Ted DiBiase taking on Ric Flair, Lex Luger, Arn Anderson, and a mystery opponent who eventually is Sting. So I'm going to lead through some of this match because I think it's important to talk about this thing that goes on during this match. So as we talked about, the Nitro prior to Fall Brawl, NWO had everyone believing that Sting had joined their crew by having what we thought was him on the backstage Lex Luger beatdown. We do know that that's not the case. It did lead to some intrigue. People were really excited about this, and we know that Old Reliable for the booking was to do a debut. Someone joins. This is sort of right out of the playbook of Eric Bischoff, all in all. So onto the match. Scott Hall and the War Games starter Arn Anderson begins the match. I did some research. Every Horsemen War Games, Arn Anderson's the starter. Did you realize that?
I did never notice that, but
he is the guy.
Now that you say it, he is the guy. He's Double Eight Man.
So Hall and Arn go at it. Arn was in control. Bobby Heenan talks about the spirit of David Crockett. He was saying whip him like a dog. He's really hyping up that he wants WCW to win. It felt like they were rooting really hard at the announce table, which was a nice flair. A lot of times we like the middle of the ground announcing, but there's a lot on the line. If you really kind of boil it down, the New World Order was threatening everybody's livelihood, so you wanted to see some passion, and Bobby Heenan was showing it.
Absolutely.
So got to remember that they're in the home of the Horsemen. They're in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, so the Horsemen gets a huge reaction, and I think that was appropriate that the Horsemen were the face here, quote unquote. Arn hits the spine buster, and Winston-Salem erupts. Arn grabs a half crab and makes a big mistake by turning his back away from the entrance. And obviously the heels, they never lose a coin toss in War Games. That's how it goes. They always have the advantage. Here comes Nash. Arn decks him real good, but Hall grabs a hold of Arn as Nash catches him with the big boot. As far as War Games go, do you think it's possible to ever have a coin flip going in the favor of the faces, or would that never work psychology-wise?
No, I could see it working for a face. You get the two faces in the ring beating up on the bad guy.
It's never happened.
But there's got to be some bullshit where like one of the other members of the face team gets locked up somewhere, like they beat him up, and then two guys come out at once, and then it gets, they really get some heat going on, But yeah, no, I could see it working. There's plenty of ways we could probably work. We'll book it.
Yeah, you and I will book it.
Yeah.
So with the odds against Luger and Arn, it's only a matter of time for the New World Order to start dishing out beatings again. Flair comes out and evens the teams and dares Hogan to join him alone in the other ring. Really cool moment there. Hogan gets a shot in, but Flair ducks a big right hand and fires back. Fans are going nuts.
Yeah.
And down goes Hogan. Hall and Nash try to save the leader and receive low blows. Flair grabs the figure four, and Hall takes a bunch of atomic drops from Luger. Again, the crowd is going nuts. This is awesome right here. So now at this point, the crowd is chanting, "We want Sting." The fake Sting has arrived. Everybody knows it's not Sting. You can pretty much tell.
You know it. I know it.
They zoom in on his face too, so they want you to know. It's not like they're trying to be like the fake Diesel and the fake Razor and pretend it's actually him. So I think at this point the announcers are selling that they don't think it's actually Sting. If you look at them in the face, like I guess the face paint's there, when they're back to back, like when fake Sting's face is actually his back to us, the hair kind of looks similar.
Yeah.
But they wrestle very differently, and I think that was, I guess, intentional at the time. So the crowd starts chanting, "We want Sting," so that everybody's realizing it's not Sting. The NWO force them continue to destroy Arn, and that's when the real Sting sprints down the aisle to a huge pop. Tony, Bobby, and Dusty all admit they were wrong, and Sting absolutely goes crazy like a hot tag, but on steroids, completely destroys everybody. Sting's done dishing out the Stinger splashes to everyone. He gives the universal up your sign to his team and leaves. So he's pissed because they doubted him in the first place, but it was cool that he still came out and defended them. The fake Sting and Hogan concentrate on Luger once in the ring, and Hall and Nash keep Flair and Double A in the other ring. Fake Sting grabs the Scorpion Deathlock while Hogan pulls up on Hogan's chin until he passes out to give New World Order the victory. Oof. 18 minutes and 15 seconds. The cage is lifted up, and the NWO continue to beat the crap out of Luger in the aisleway, and he's trying to find Sting. It really is a dramatic moment. There wasn't a lot of gore like that we're used to seeing in the War Games. Like we're much used to seeing people dripping with blood. And I know it's not the time, and I'm sure the sponsors didn't want it.
Yeah.
We still get a lot of other things on the end of the night. So Elizabeth, who at the time allegedly is not on good terms with Savage, comes down to try to stop the New World Order. They're all unimpressed, and Liz lays on top of Savage, and she gets the NWO letter sprayed on her back. So Hogan gets on a mic, berates both of them for not being able to commit to their wedding vows, absolutely goes off, sounds like a shoot interview. Don't want to see Macho Man in his media scrum following this. So Giant grabs a spray can and does the honors over Savage's back, and man, this is one of those pivotal moments. Like, NWO was put on the map here. Like, we talk about Bash at the Beach, we talk about the lawn dart moment. This put them over as like, wow, they've arrived. They are the utmost force in WCW. That who's going to stop them? And now you have the other thing where I think Sting disappears now until around Halloween, where he comes back as Crow because like he's just sick of everybody doubting him.
Yeah, no, and that's like, I had this originally when we were like, oh, War Games is gonna be, we're doing Fall Brawl. I was like, fuck yeah, because next year's is NWO versus the Horsemen again, and they're like, so it's very very confused. Like I forgot that this was a fake Sting one going into it, but this was great. I thought it was a really fun match. It was very interesting, good storytelling with Sting. Like, and I love the confusion aspect of it too. Like, oh, Sting had no idea what was going on, so he was like, "What the fuck?" And then kind of plays out into what he was doing too. He's sick of their shit, gives him the up you and takes off. It was great shit, man.
Yeah. So I mean, if you ask anybody that's a WCW fan, they pretty much lean on this show as being one of the cornerstones of their fandom. That you look at the storylines and you see some emotional buildup with, obviously the Liz and the Macho stuff going on. And then on top of it, you have, Flair and Sting and Luger's friendship and things going on. And on top of that, the great action with, Cruiserweights, the Rey Mysterio stuff, Benoit and Jericho. This match, these matches were just great. And this is kind of why we picked 1996. And as we kind of get the fall started, we move towards Halloween Havoc, which is sure to be a banger of a show.
Ooh, I'm excited.
This was a really good way to kind of lead into September. I was really happy with watching this. I had a good time, and this was a nice breath of fresh air watching old school wrestling while the drama in the current day wrestling continues to bog us down a little bit.
I could not agree with you more. It was good to cuddle up into our little space for some good old ECW or some WCW, ECW. That's all coming up to me.
Let's go, brother. Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go.
All right, so let's go to the Chaser. We'll pick our favorite part of the Nitro and Fall Brawl and talk about why we liked it the most. All right, so here we are with the Chaser. Mike Belcaster, what was your favorite part of the 2 nights of wrestling we got to indulge in?
It was Ice Train.
Oh, yeah, Fujiwara armbar, baby. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello there. As good as Rey Mysterio and Super Calo was, because it was really good, I'm actually giving my vote to Conan and Juventud. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was good to see our homie Conan back to his normal grubs. Juventud's always a blast to watch. Super Calo just did not do it enough for me. Like, it was a great match, super fun, but it was, like you said, it was almost like watching Rey Mysterio fight a lesser talented version of Rey Mysterio.
Like one of those AWA, like, fake lucha figures. Like, yeah, that's what he felt like.
It absolutely was. So, but I also give big shout outs to the fake Sting, because he was my favorite video game character in the WCW games. I'm not even shitting you. Like, I was always fake Sting for some reason.
It's actually kind of weird because fake guys are not. We can even talk about the MJF stuff this weekend where he wore the devil mask and he didn't hide his mannerisms at all. And people were saying, well, he should have pretended he wasn't MJF. But if you're looking like in storyline, why would MJF ever pretend to be anybody else? You know what I mean? Like, that's who MJF is. And you go back to Ric Flair. I think he was the Black Scorpion, and he really hit his mannerisms well, where he's wrestling under a mask and nobody knew it was him. And that was the Dusty Rhodes stuff. That was one of those well-told storylines. And I think fake guys, to go back to fake Taker, fake Diesel, fake Razor, they're not always well done. I mean, the fake Taker I thought was really well done, but again, I was a child, so like Bryan Adams really tricked me into believing that was actually Taker. Yeah,
done on a higher level than most of the others.
But this one was really good, and it's challenging because it's a guy that's not wearing a full costume. He's shirtless, he's wearing tights, and he just has face paint. For all things told, I thought this was pretty impressive, and they committed to it. They didn't like do a double switch. They had fake Sting come out there and wrestle.
Yeah, they absolutely did. It was good for them to stick with it and not like making some goofy shit.
So my favorite match of the night had to be Jericho Benoit, but I'm also going to go with the War Games match. I thought this was great, storyline wise, and we talked about the quality of the card in like the beginning when we talked about the Observer. there was a lot of conversation about quality of the matches. And if you're at the top of the card, it's not going to be quality matches. You're going to sacrifice the work rate. But at the same time, the star power in this match, you go down the line, Hogan, Nash, Hall, the Real Sting, Flair, Lex, Arn, like this is jam-packed with stars. That the story is like, you don't see stars like this team up and get in the ring together. And it's one of those times in history where stars were abound. They were everywhere. And WCW had a plethora of them. And not every match has to be this work rate technical classic. And we see that on a weekly basis here.
Yeah.
You know, Dante Martin and Wheeler Yuta can tear the house down, but is it really getting people to tune in on a week-to-week basis? Like, that's the difference with good storytelling and characters that enthrall you and want you to come back for more. And this was filled with 6 guys. Even at ringside, you had Ted DiBiase, who's a legend as well. Like, this is absolutely just jam-packed match, a great pay-per-view card. If you're looking for a good gauge about what's good about 1996, this is right up there as far as like what I would recommend. One of my favorite shows that we covered throughout this whole run of 1996, and that's saying a lot because there's been some really good stuff we've covered.
No, you're 100% right, and I couldn't agree with you more. Like, and that's why Fall Brawl is always as legendary as it was. It was always a fun fucking show, and just the aesthetics of having 2 rings, you know, giving people different play. That's I really love World War III because there's the 3 ring. Like, it changes shit up, and like you, just different. It's a spectacle, and like it's awesome.
All right, so we're gonna close the tab. The lights are coming on the bar. We're gonna give our final wrap up preview next week's episode. Get our shit in, have a little conversation, get out of here, and get our weekend started.
Woo! Yeah, brother.
All right, guys. So in 20 minutes before our time is going to be going live on the YouTube channel, WrestleMania 9. They're going to be covering all that went down there, and most notably Bret Hart versus Yokozuna, and Hogan comes in and steals the championship, which is a crazy moment. Hated it. I still hate it. I wonder what their thoughts are. I mean, I have really not agreed with a lot of their takes on the WrestleManias, but that's what makes their show so great because they're looking at it from a perspective that's, you know, someone that's watching it for the first time, and some of them don't age really well. They really shit on WrestleMania 6, which hurt my feelings, but to each their own.
Tired of working with these fucking kids.
I'm tired and I'm old and I work with children. So next week we're going to be covering 2 episodes of Nitro. We get the debut of 6. And you know how they got the name 6? We'll talk about it next week. You add 1, 2, and 3 together. The 1, 2, 3 kid, his name is 6.
I thought it was like a play on cocaine because he's the 6th ball.
Well, I'm sure it might be, actually.
Yeah.
So September 16th and the September 23rd episode of Nitro. Some good stuff there. We're getting all the gang together. It's going to be cool to see 6 finally there. Of course, there's other things to talk about. It's always weird coming off of a pay-per-view because it's like almost not a letdown, but it doesn't feel like it's as much to cover next week. But trust me, guys, you do not want to miss next week.
Yeah.
There's so much in the newsletter. There's so much to talk about as we approach Halloween Havoc and spooky season here in real time. We're going to be in alignment as well. I think when we get to Halloween Havoc, we have some special guests. I know that Chad's going to be joining us for the debut of Crow Sting, which is just before Halloween Havoc. So we have some guests, and who knows is going to be joining us for future episodes. So we have a lot on the table. Mike Belcaster, give me some things going on for the week. I know you and I have GCW on Monday, but what else is going on? You guys did sessions the other day.
We did sessions. We had a very, very styled and graced Mike on the wrap-up the other night. You probably want to miss that one, at least for my dignity.
No, it was so good. You're eating Indies the whole time. It was amazing.
I was just sitting there eating and not even talking. Like, it was fantastic. But we got Fig Night, obviously, Tuesdays. You know the drill. Sessions drops Wednesday now. We got like a new schedule. So that's really good. Big fan of long balls. Hello there.
Good morning.
We had the pleasure of being in Hooch's good graces this weekend.
What a guy. I love that guy.
Yeah, we're almost a week removed from our shit, so it's good to like relax.
It's crazy, dude. This time last week, we're getting ready for Rampage. I'm going to pull up the pictures quick. I want to show pictures of us, you, myself, and Tom, and also Hawk.
Oh, yeah.
Takes a second to load. Just do some more shilling while I pull it up.
Yeah, no, shill away. Guys, go visit theturnbuckletavern.com where you can find every single thing that we do. You want to buy t-shirts and support your homies? Our Teespring's up there. Our Pro Wrestling Tee shop is up there. You want to follow us on every form of social media? That's there too. It's good times. So like, I really, really highly, if you're not liked and subscribed now, what are you doing wrong, brother? Because we should be friends. We should be making towns together. We should be getting over, man.
Good morning. It's taking forever to load. I'm gonna get it open though, because you got to see this picture of Hawk. I mean, you guys can see it at ACEFIELD Retro at Mike Belcast. We are sharing these photos.
Yeah.
But I want to share this photo because it's such a good one.
No, and it's good to be reflective of our time and past. But while you're loading, I'm just going to throw some more shilling out there. Shot of Nostalgia t-shirts, Tavern Daddies. This is official Pro Wrestling Tee merch, baby. You know the website. Just go to prowrestlingtees.com/tavern, and all of our good stuff's right up there with you. Yeah, and again, we plugged it earlier, but you got your anti-Taskmaster shirt. Obviously, he's just doing his own fucking thing. He's like the kid that licked glue sticks in the corner at school, so he's just like, oh, yeah, it's like Dungeon of Doom. It's going to be great. And it's not Haku. It's Ming. Listen, Shivani, or whoever made the flub, go fuck yourself.
I'm almost there, I promise.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, and if you guys are, rocking and rolling, our next season of Shot of Nostalgia, we're going to be going over ECW 1995. It's going to be great, man. Starting off with ECW Double Tables and going all the way through to ECW's Holiday Hell. I really loved the event names ECW had. Like, they were very unique.
Very akin to GCW.
Yeah, Heatwave, hoodies, and chokeslam. Oh, sorry, barbed wire hoodies and chokeslam.
Get it right, damn it.
Yeah, right. Enter Sandman. Obviously, we know where that's going. But Hostile City Showdown, three-way dance, a lot of good shit going on here. So I'm pumped for that, very, very much so. It's going to be a great, great fucking time.
Yeah, and there's not going to be a lapse in content either, by the way, guys. So we're going to be coming straight to you the week after we end Shot of Nostalgia, straight to ECW 1995. It may look a little bit different. There's going to be obviously different graphics. The newsletter won't be as in-depth, but we'll find some other fun segments to make it and bring it to life for you guys, because ECW is going to be a lot of fun to cover. And without further ado, we do have the photo right here. Myself, Mike Belcaster, and Tom, we got there. This is the first night we got there. We had a good night that night. Many, many good moments to come.
You are a tall drink of water, man.
So they say. And then also, this
Tom roofied somebody.
This is our good friend Hawk right there. He, in all his glory, wearing those only he could, rocking those jean shorts and those dress shoes, and he was
blue
the man.
Socks. Yeah,
he drove us in the Las Vegas mobile as well. Like, he absolutely was. He was every bit as advertised, and even better. Hawk, we love you so much, man. You crushed it. It was great meeting you in person.
It was great meeting you in person. It was great meeting all of you in person. It was cool being with everybody together for that short amount of time. It was just a blast, man.
We know how Full Gear coming up in New Jersey. I hope we can get everybody together. I know there's not a fan fest tied to it, so it's not as much of a destination. And Jersey's not Chicago. Let's not pretend it is. But it would be cool to get the whole tavern together. And
Tom's there.
Tom will be there. I'm going to try myself to be there.
Meet and greets with Dashy. It'll be good.
If you guys want Tom's autograph, I'm sure he'll send you one.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll send you one, and then so.
So that's all we got, Mike Belcaster. I mean, again, it was so great having you back on the show. I missed you last week, but you know what? We have content to bring you guys, but it's so much better when I have my partner in WCW Crime. But I appreciate you guys watching. Tip your bartenders. We gotta go. We're out of time.